So to start, we're going to add 190 grams of granulated sugar, and we're also going to add the juice of 5 lemons. I'm just straining it to make sure that I don't have any pips or pith or anything in there, although I am going to strain it later. I just want to do this initially so that there aren't too many lumps and anything else in there that we don't want. So I'm just pushing this down in the sieve to try and make sure I get all of that juice. I've got this in a bain-marie, which is a saucepan filled with boiling water at the bottom, and then I've got a bowl over the top. This is a glass bowl, don't use plastic or anything, and I've made sure that it is not touching the saucepan of water underneath, so it's just lightly suspended, so we're going to get the heat, but that means there's no chance of burning. If you don't want to do it this way, you don't have to. You can just use a very heavy based saucepan. This is over a really low heat, and I'm just going to make sure that I stir this now for the next 5 minutes or so to make sure that everything's dissolved, and then I'm going to add the eggs. You'll notice that with this recipe the rind is not in the bottom, the zest. And the reason is that, and this is a little tip that Martha Stewart taught me, is that when the rind is heated up for this length of time, it can go a little bit bitter and can detract from the overall lemoniness, if that's even a word. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the lemon zest towards the end. So at this point we've just got the lemon and the sugar. Now for our eggs, what I've done, and I've got 2 yolks and 2 eggs, so in total there's 4 yolks in this with 2 lots of egg white, and I've put them in a bowl and I've whisked them with a wire whisk for around about 2 minutes. That's just with a hand whisk, not with an electric mixer, just so that they're quite foamy, really yellowy and orangey, but a little bit foamy on the top and really light. And I'm actually going to strain that in here into this mixture, and then I'm going to stir it constantly so that it doesn't scramble. So part of the reason that I've strained that mixture is to get rid of, I think it's called albumin, but basically when you have eggs you'll notice that on the yolks there's like some little white bits. That's the bit that we don't want. So by straining it, it makes sure that we don't get any of that, and by whisking it, it means it's going to cook a little bit more evenly and before it's gone into this mixture. So first of all, I only use free range eggs, and these are medium sized eggs. With my lemon, what I've done, I've actually got the juice of 5 lemons in here, small to medium sized lemons, and what I did was, after I'd zested them, I cut them in half and I put them all into a bowl. So I had 10 halves in a bowl, put it in the microwave for around about a minute, but it does depend on the heat of your microwave. And by heating it up, it means that the juice comes out a lot more easily. You will get a lot more juice. I would say 20 to 30% more juice by doing that. But you can always add more lemons, or if you've got larger lemons, or if you just don't like it quite as lemony, then you don't need to add that. I've used unwaxed lemons. And I've zested them. Now, when you're zesting, firstly, use a really fine grater. Secondly, I would always recommend washing and drying your lemons first, just to make sure that you don't get any contaminants in there. And thirdly, when you're grating them, try not to get any of the white part. You only really want the lemon part. It contains all the oil. The white part is actually quite bitter, and you don't want any of that. If you prefer it more lemony, by all means add more lemon. I haven't added the zest yet, and I will do shortly. I'll tell you about that in a moment. But with the lemon zest here, I've used 6 lemons, a zest of 6 lemons for this, because I want it really lemony. If you don't want quite as much lemon, perhaps 4. If you want it really sharp, maybe 7, perhaps even 8 medium-sized lemons. So this has been cooking for around about 15 minutes now. What I did was I stirred it constantly for the first 5 minutes, and then I just let it cook, just on a really low heat. You really don't want to put this on a high heat, trying to rush it. If you do that, you really are quite likely to get scrambled eggs. So what we're going to do now is we're going to strain this mixture, and then we're going to add our lemon zest, and then finally our butter. Now the butter is actually in the freezer right now because it got a little bit warm because of the heat of the room, and you really do need cold butter for the next part. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you how thick this is to show you that it can coat the back of a spoon. So there is my wooden spoon, and there is the fact that it has coated the wooden spoon. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to take the mixture off here and mind yourself with the steam. You'll see that there's still some water in there. You need to make sure enough water is in there that you don't boil the pan dry. So what I've done is I have now added a different pan on top. It's got the lemon zest in it that I grated earlier before I juiced the lemons, and I'm just putting my sieve on the top. Now it did have egg in it earlier, but I've rinsed it out. I'm now going to pour my lemon mixture on top of this. So it'll go through the strainer onto my lemon zest. Now be careful of the pot because it will be hot. It has been on the heat for a good while. So I'm just going to get that through there, and we're just going to strain that just to remove any eggy or lumpy bits. Now I know that when you were cooking this it will have seemed like it was never ever going to thicken, but it almost does it just as soon as you blink. There'll be nothing at all for a good 15-20 minutes, and then all of a sudden it's done. I did mine over a really low heat, so it took a little bit longer, but I think it's worth it. You can see here the lemony bits that are in it. Now that's going to make it extra lemony. It is still over the water, which is keeping it quite warm. In a minute I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to add the butter, and that's going to cool it down really quickly. Right, so I'm going to add my cold butter now. This is very cold butter, but it is important that your butter is cold, because by adding cold butter you're going to stop this mixture from getting any warmer from the heat of the pan, but also it's going to thicken your mixture for later, and this will mean that the butter doesn't cook with the eggs. It just cools the whole mixture down, which is what you want, but it won't cook. You won't heat your butter up to the point where it's going to melt really quickly. Just stirring that in. I'm going to set this aside to cool as soon as this butter has melted, and then it'll thicken nicely overnight. Don't put it in the fridge while it's still warm. What you need to do is you need to leave it on the side to cool. This will take anywhere between half an hour and 2 hours depending on the climate that you're in, and then you can put it into the fridge covered. If you're going to put it into with cling film over the top of the bowl or whatever receptacle you're using, I would recommend having the cling film touch the top of the lemon curd to prevent a skin forming. Okay, so this is pretty much done. I'm going to take this off the heat now, and I'm going to let it cool, and then I'll be putting it in the fridge later. This is a beautifully thick, beautifully glossy lemon curd. I would definitely recommend it, and I doubt you'll go back to the jarred kind once you've tried this. So thank you so much for watching. If you did like this video, please do like and subscribe, and I will catch you next time.